Thanks for sticking with me. We're now going to move into part 2 of the t-shirt transformation series. In this part, I'll teach you how to do the triangle neckline cutout, and we'll also go over doing armpit cutouts and fringing the bottom and some basic techniques for bleaching. So let's get started on the triangle cutout. You're going to want to grab your t-shirt, and what I like to do first is just get a center point on my t-shirt. So I hold it up like this, match the shoulder seams right there, match the side seams, now you've got a nice center fold line. So I take my tailor's chalk. I'm just going to mark the center right below the collar, and then I'm going to unfold my t-shirt. You can see my little mark right there. And if it doesn't feel truly centered to the graphic, you might want to eyeball it a little bit and just make that centered. This doesn't feel quite on the money to me. I really want it to be aligned with that tomato on the shirt. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Just move it over a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to determine how big I want my V cutout to be. So I like it to end right at the top of where the little galaxy on the shirt starts. So I'm just going to put my dot there. Just align with the first mark, the ruler, and go ahead and make your point dot. And now I'm thinking I want the V to be a little wide so I can see where I want it to end on this side. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw my line. Now I'm going to take that line and I'm going to measure to the center point straight across. So we're at 1.5 inches. So I'm going to take this, go 1.5, and just make another mark. And go ahead and connect the dots. So now you can see I have my triangle cutout all mapped out. Okay, the next step is you're going to want to grab your seam ripper, and you're just going to go right in to that center on the back side of the neckline of your shirt and start ripping out your stitches. You're going to rip your stitches out all the way to your marked line. Okay, so you can see that. Just did one side. Once I've got it going, I like to switch so that the front is facing me. That way I don't over seam rip. I can see my chalk lines. Alrighty, so we've separated the collar. And now we're just gonna take our scissors and cut right along that chalk line. Now you want to be very careful when you do this because you only want to do it once. You want it to be nice and clean. Alright, and the cutting portion is done. Let's head over to the sewing machine. Okay, so now we're going to finish off the neckline. So as you can see, it's still raw. So you're going to want to open up the neckline. Just snip your thread a little bit. So that you can get your sewing machine in. And what we're going to do is we're just going to stitch down the underside of the collar. We're just going to stitch it under itself. We're going to be folding that over a nice tiny little hem with the raw edge. You can make a little incision so that it's easier to fold. Incision on the other side as well. Going to make the front match the back, so I like to flip it over. And right in here you kind of want to squish your triangle back up in there since you made that little incision. We're just going to go right along, folding under the top part of the collar, making it match the back. Just laying that nice and flat and stitching right over the stitch that we just laid down. This is what this part's going to look like. You're just going to be folding this piece under. Oh, it popped out. Fold it under, squish that down, and sew right on top of there. This is what it will look like when it's done. You may have a little bit of curling. That's because it's a stretch fabric. We're just going to run this through the iron, and that's going to press that all flat for us. Okay, now we're going to go over how to cut out the armpits and how to fringe. So So let's start with cutting out the armpits. If you want to, you can technically just go right along the seam, but personally I like to make them a little lower than just kind of with the straight boxy t-shirt cut. So I am going to take my ruler. I'm just going to put a little mark right at 1/2 inch from the shoulder seam inward. I'm going to keep going along, following that. You do want to try and get that t-shirt nice and flat. Sometimes they have been through the wash a lot and they do not like to lay very flat anymore. There we go. Now I'm going to start accounting for the fact that I want the armpit to be much lower. So I'm thinking I want it to start around here, so let's measure that. It's a good 2 inches from the armpit hole, so just going to mark that there. And now here's where you want to grab your hip curve ruler if you have one, but it's not a tool that's in everyone's sewing kit, so I'll show you how to do it without it. You're going to go in between your dots and give yourself a slightly smaller measurement, so 1.5. If you did 2 down here, 1.5. And now go in between those and give yourself a 1-inch measurement. And now you can see we have a nice shoulder curve going on here. I'm just going to connect these 2 points because one of those points seems a little far out to me. And connecting the armpit ones. You can go ahead and do the same to the other side, 1/2 inch right at the shoulder. Two inches at the pit. One and a half is your next mark. 1. You can even do this, if this was your 1-inch mark, you can just kind of go straight across there. Scooch that over so it's a nice even number on your ruler. Connect your dots. Great. So now I'm going to do it to the back side. Just take a look at the markings I made there. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same ratio, although if you wish you could make your line, you know, a lot deeper in the back, but you really want to make sure that your shoulder seams are going to line up. So if you did want to do that, you would still want to go starting at 1/2 inch here. And you would just want to go like deeper in, kind of creates more of a racer back style. But I'm going to go for the consistency and just keep it the same as the front. About 2-inch mark. Just kind of folding the fabric how you need to keep it as flat as possible on the side that you're working on. All right, now we are all marked up. So now we're gonna go ahead and cut out the sleeves. So you wanna grab your t-shirt and put your hand inside of it. Just make a snip through one layer right along your line. And go ahead and follow that. You really want to make sure your line is nice and clean when you're drawing it, because you do want to be able to follow it pretty exactly with your scissors. You want to keep your hand in there as a guide, just so that you don't accidentally snip the middle of your t-shirt or anything like that. Okay, there's one. It's transforming into a tank top. Let's go ahead and cut out the other one. I do find you're going to need to reposition your hands once you get over that side seam. All right, now we have a tank top. So if we want to fringe out the bottom of this, the first step is going to be just to go ahead and cut off this waistband. So you don't have to, but I like to just make sure that I'm not cutting it at an angle at all. So I'm just going to take my ruler, measure it. Seems like 15 inches is a nice measurement that gives me room to cut off that band. So I'll put a mark there. Go ahead and mark 15 inches on the other side. Oh, nope. 15 inches is cutting into that, so let's go ahead and do 14 and a half. This is why you check, because t-shirts are wonky. They cannot be trusted to be symmetrical. So now go ahead and true that line. You can just cut through both layers as long as you feel like you've got a nice flat fabric situation going on. Okay, so now we want to decide how far up do we want the fringe to go. Do we want this to be, you know, like a true crop top where the fringe is maybe really long and kind of moves in the wind, or do we want the fringe to maybe start below our belly button so that there's no chance of any belly button peekaboos? You get to decide how you want yours to look. I'm thinking that for this one, I don't want the fringe to really showcase my belly very much. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put my highest cut mark right there. Take the ruler and measure it. We're right at about 9. Let's call it 9 just to make it easy. Draw a line parallel to the hem. Okay, And now you can choose to go straight across the back, also doing the same measurement as the front, or you could draw a curve if you wish. You can get creative with that. I'm gonna go straight across. Okay. If you choose, you can connect the dots and just make that line a little bit more visible for yourself. And go ahead and do it on the front as well. All right, now deciding how wide you want your fringe to be. I like to do is just go ahead and make a sample fringe line. And I kind of like the way skinnier fringe looks, so I'm going to go ahead and mark 1/2 inch and just go right along, putting marks every 1/2 inch. More towards the bottom, that's really where you need them. Maybe every 4 inches I'll do a full line just to keep myself straight. Now that the back's done, we can go ahead and start cutting. Okay, so you just want to start on one of your vertical lines and go ahead and slice her up. Slice all the way to, but not through, your line that's parallel with the hem. Follow the guide of your last cut to keep everything nice and straight. Okay, when you get to that side seam, you just want to cut it out. Alright, so it is a tedious process, but just keep on going. This is what it should start to look like. Voila, we have fringe. Alright, now we're going to go over some bleaching basics so that you can make your shirt look something like this. So, what you're going to need is, I like to use a syringe. You could also use a paintbrush, but that tends to get really messy, and you definitely want to use safety goggles if you're going to use a paintbrush because you don't want any bleach splattering back into your eyes. In general, it's a great idea to wear safety goggles and some type of face covering when working with bleach, and definitely have the windows open or try to work outside. You'll also need dish soap. This makes it so that the bleach doesn't give you crazy orange colors. If you want more of a white bleach out effect, you're going to want to use more dish soap. If you like the orange, you could forego the dish soap. Or use just a little bit. I personally like to use some. I think that it creates a better coloring. And then you'll need bleach. You just want to note if your bleach is concentrated or unconcentrated. So that's going to matter in your ratio. You're going to need water. And for the final process, you're going to need some vitamin C. So like an emergency packet works great. Alright, so I'm not actually going to use the real bleach right now. One, because I'm pregnant and I can't work with bleach. But two, because it'll make a mess of my studio and it really should be done in a plastic tub or in your bathtub. So we're just going to show by example how to do it. So you're going to want to take a cup, bowl, measuring cup, whatever, fill it with some water. If you're using concentrated bleach, you want to do like half water, half bleach. If you're not using concentrated bleach, you could pretty much put straight bleach in there with just like a little bit of water and the dish soap. So make up your ratio. It can be pretty free-spirited. I never really measure bleach. I always kind of just eyeball it. Turns out great pretty much every time. So then once you have your bleach and your dish soap mixed up in here, you're going to take your squirt bottle, and I like to drench the bottom a lot and make it really heavy with bleach. You could even hang your t-shirt on a hanger and dip it into a tub of bleach if you want that ombre effect. Or you can just really go heavy with it on the bottom with your squirt gun. And then I kind of like to bring it up a little bit. Just giving some kind of speckles up into the top part, keeping it lighter up there, and just continuing to drench the bottom. And really this is your own artistic preference. Maybe you want it to look more even all over, or you want to do the heavy bleaching in the top and have it fade to darker in the bottom. So you're just gonna get creative with that part, and if you want to, you can put a piece of cardboard in between your two layers, or you can let your front layer bleed into your back layer, and once you start seeing this part lighten up, just flip it over and check it out on the back, and maybe give a few more squirts where you feel they are needed. So you wait for it to lighten up. As soon as you start to see the color that you like, you want to start rinsing. Now you want to keep in mind that the color is going to come out as you're rinsing, so it's actually going to be lighter. So you don't want to, drench your t-shirt that's 20 years old in really heavy bleach and let it sit for 2 hours, because you're not going to have a t-shirt left. So you want to be very diligent and just keep your eye on the bleach the whole time, and give it a really good rinse in the bathtub. Then bring it to your washing machine, toss it in the washing machine with preferably only other things that you have bleached in the same way. You don't want your bleach, you don't want to throw in your other black t-shirts that you want to keep black, because they'll get like marbly bleach tie-dye look. And once you toss it in the wash, you toss an emergency packet in the wash, because this neutralizes the bleach, and just let the washing machine do its thing. You can take it out, put it in the dryer if you want, or you can hang dry it, whatever you prefer. And that's the basics of bleaching.